Hello and welcome to another edition of What to Watch with Your Popcorn. Today we will be reviewing the James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me, starring Roger Moore as James Bond.
Yes, we are. Okay, so here's what the movie is about. The film opens when both British and Russian submarines disappears. The British government finds a microfilm detailing the movements of the last British submarine. Now, the British and Russian secret services decide to join forces and send out James Bond and Russian agent XXX, played by Barbara Bach. Now, together they discover that their enemy is shipping billionaire Karl Stromberg, who plans to use the submarines to destroy the world through nuclear missiles, and the survivors will be forced to live in Stromberg's new world under the ocean. Many people feel, including myself, that this is probably the best film to feature Roger Moore as Bond. The film features probably the best camera work I've seen in a Bond film, including the night shots when Bond is visiting the pyramids in Egypt, and there is nice underwater scenes that do not drag. Now, the film also features an impressive skiing sequence in the opening, and I felt that the script was well written with some of the best double entendres in the series, and the fight scenes were great to watch. But if the film had any weak points, I think that it lies in the villain. Stromberg I found to be a little bland and one note during the movie, and also most of the score, including during the ski sequence in the beginning, sounded a little too 70s-ish to me. Oftentimes it sounded like disco music, and as a result sometimes it could make the film a little dated. Now, a lot of the music from like the Connery films I think hold up a little bit better, but still, The Spy Who Loved Me I think is a film that is definitely something you can watch with your popcorn. Right, Dave?
Yeah, definitely. I thought that skiing sequence was really something. I didn't think the music they used for it was too over the top, but yeah, I do agree it was real 70-ish.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to some of the scores, like for like the Sean Connery films, you know, I think for the most part they still hold up. But here, during some of the fight scenes and during the ski scenes, they get that music that goes, you know, with the guitar, and it makes it sound like a disco music. That was a bit of a weakness for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, they don't do that too much in spy movies nowadays. It's more of the well, nowadays they use like metal music and all that mostly.
Mm-hmm. And they still might use an orchestra for some of that stuff. So I think that's probably one of the Spy's weaknesses.
I like that one fight scene between Shandor and James Bond on the roof, though, in Egypt. That was well shot and it was well choreographed, and I also thought it was a little bit funny because of the things that Shandor was doing, you know.
Yeah, that was a good example of mixing comedy with fighting, and they do that a lot. Like, I think that really helps, and like I said, I think the double entendres in here is definitely some of the best that I've heard. I mean, you expect that in a James Bond movie. You expect Bond to throw off something quick during fights and what have you, and these were featuring some of the best that I've heard, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was also some really good comical gadgets, new gadgets.
I mean, I thought the car that changed into a boat underwater was probably my favorite in the whole movie. I thought that sequence was going to go on too long, but I mean, it didn't. It really went well with the story, and it didn't drag at all.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch, and plus it kind of it helped lead into the next scene where they got to the enemy craft in the water. Yeah,
but I thought the villain just wasn't that strong, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the way that they offed him in the very end, it just wasn't exciting. I thought there was going to be like a much bigger fight at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And I noticed this film was directed by Louis Gilbert, who directed another Bond film earlier called You Only Live Twice. This film, I could see a lot of similarities between that film and this film. For example, Stromberg felt a little bit like a Blofeld knockoff, because there's one scene where Stromberg gets rid of an assistant, and it kind of reminded me of how Blofeld got rid of an assistant in You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
And I know the thing about kidnapping submarines and their crew reminded me of when in You Only Live Twice, Blofeld kidnaps astronauts and takes the rocket. There was a lot of similarities between this. So to me, in that aspect, the story structure was a little bit of the same in that sense. So I wished, when I was watching it, that they could have done something a little bit different with it. Because to me, interestingly, I found out that this script was originally written for Blofeld, so some of what was probably from that original script was held over into this new one. I mean, I think Kurt Jurgens, who plays the role of Stromberg, does what he can with it. So I definitely say this is definitely one of Roger Moore's best Bond films. Roger Moore, for some reason, I'm not crazy about his films. Sometimes I think they're a bit too comical, but here I think it's definitely one of the more serious films that he's done as Bond and all. So I definitely say this is probably, if you're looking at Roger Moore's films, I think this would be a good one to look into.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's it for this edition of What to Watch with Your Popcorn, and feel free to leave any comments about this video or about the movie The Spy Who Loved Me, and we'll see you next time.